I don't think about reaching thousands of people. We should probably build our own app. And I'm like, we don't have any audience yet. Like, let's launch this minimum viable product, putting all of my energy into this one idea, and it didn't work out. No matter what decision you made, you were probably going to anger half your congregation. Jason and I, we saw people go through that, and like, they did it. They navigated the thing. And then about a year later or 6 months later, they burnt out.
Hey, welcome to the Sonnal Podcast, where we try to recapture focus, flow, and fun. My name is Nick. I'm your host. Today, we have an amazing podcast for you. Jonathan Malm is a great friend of mine. He is an author, entrepreneur, a rad dad of 3. And what I love is that he approaches projects with fun and with excellence. We're going to be talking about some of his books, The Comeback Effect, The Volunteer Effect, but specifically Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright, and many more. You're going to enjoy this conversation. Jonathan, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. I think one of the things that has helped shape me has been in 2023, went through like this season of burnout. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I read Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright. I was able to have a conversation with Jason Young, and we've had a couple of conversations, but I've never been able to talk to you about this book. This book has been so influential in the way that I see my work, the way that I see life. And so, as we kind of like anchor in that, my big question for you is the internet has just shaped who you are. Like it's really how you do business. I want to know about how it shaped you, how it shaped your business. And I'd love to hear the story of how you've kind of come into, doing the work that you do.
Yeah, the internet is just crazy because whenever I think about what I do now, it didn't exist 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Like and the things that I'm moving into right now, like I'm doing something over the weekend that I couldn't have done 4 months ago. It's just insane, the opportunity. I feel like you can come up with an idea that you think there's only one person who likes, but you can find everyone in the world who likes that idea and like actually be successful. So I think that's what's shaped me, just the idea of being able to niche focus. I like saying niche instead of niche because like I like to say find a niche and scratch it.
Yes.
So just the ability of like, the first thing that I started that kind of did well was a site called Church Stage Design Ideas, and like talk about niche, like staging for churches that do staging. And it reached, 100,000 people or something, just insane numbers. I didn't even think that was possible. And I think that's just how it's shaped me is you get an idea and you can find the people pretty easily. Not that easily. A lot of people struggle with this, right? But like you can do it. Like if you are intentional and if you put the work in and you like do it wisely, you can do it. So I feel like that's how it shaped me as a business person. I've always been interested in business, like making a product, selling something, but actually having the audience to be able to do it has been crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing you're great at is creating audiences, and I feel like your iterative testing, that's something that I see you do quite often. Yeah. Can you maybe talk a bit about that? Like, how do you think about reaching thousands of people online?
I don't think about reaching thousands of people. I think every time that I've started something, Sunday Social, which is my current company, I think I told my business partner, I'm like, we could get like 500 people to use this. And like, that was probably the upper end of what I thought was possible, right? And now we're around 5,000, right? So it's way more, and then way more people are paying attention to it than that. But I think I just try to come up with like a micro, very focused, targeted idea. And I'm like, if I can serve this one person really well, then that's probably enough. I'm not trying to make a ton of money from it. Like, and I think that's maybe part of it is like, so because of that, I don't tinker with it. I don't like rather over tinker with it. I don't think, okay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And I think because I launched so quickly and so small, so focused, it makes it easy to pivot because I'm not so invested in, I'm working on a project right now with a couple of guys. They're like, yeah, so we can create bigger products next, and we can, we should probably build our own app. And I'm like, we don't have any audience yet. Like, let's launch this minimum viable product. Let's see if people even like it. If not, we'll pivot quickly. But if we're already invested in all these things, we can't do it. So I think that's part of it. It's maybe small thinking is how I do it. Like, that's how I get to big things is through small thinking.
That's awesome. Yeah. I feel that that's like a healthy place to be in too, because if you put a lot of stock in your idea and then it just doesn't happen, and then you do it again and again and again, that could feel like a really quick way to get into some burnout.
I don't think of it as failure. I think people regularly ask me like, what do you do when you fail? I'm like, I have failed, I guess, if you're thinking like, again, if I was like putting all of my energy into this one idea and it didn't work out, but I'm like, oh, let's just try it. It's almost like, to me, like business is almost like fencing, right? Where like you kind of like, you just see if there's an opening, you stab. It's not like you're putting everything into this one move.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the key, is just, you just try it. And it's a little test.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because again, like that's super healthy that, you can let go of it. You're actually testing to see if the audience wants what you're doing. And so, yeah, I think one of the things that has been really cool is like the books that you write. Like you have a company, you're also an author. The Comeback Effect, there's the Volunteer
Effect.
Yeah, there's
Don't
so
Burn Out,
many.
Burn Bright.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Don't Burn Out. There's so many. Also, great volunteer resources for churches, which is really cool. But when we look at Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright, it has staying power. Like you're doing a video series on it right now. Can you talk to us about Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright, and like where did that come from? Why did you write that?
During COVID, we saw so many people, they survived COVID. They survived, like, as being a pastor during COVID was like horrible, because no matter what decision you made, you were probably going to anger half your congregation, whether you did masks, didn't do masks, open, didn't open, did online service, whatever you chose, you were going to make people mad. And so we saw people, Jason and I, we saw people go through that, and like, they did it. They navigated the thing. And then about a year later or 6 months later, they burnt out and they just like left the ministry, or worse, left the faith. Like, so many people we saw doing that. And so we're like, okay, how can we, okay, so the problem is, once you burn out, it's a long road to get to burnout, and it's a long road out of it, right?
Yeah.
So what instead could we do to help people hopefully avoid that in the first place, right? Like, we knew there were a bunch of churches shutting down. That meant there was going to be a bunch of new people coming into the ministry. Could we get people in the beginning to say, hey, how can you just not have to get there in the first place? And so we started thinking about that. Like, what are some of the pillars of health? And his wife is a counselor, so we had some inside track into some burnout, some actual like research based stuff, and we kind of built this framework of what we feel like health in ministry looks like. And our hope was ultimately to just keep people from like, don't try to do less necessarily, like be a high capacity leader, but actually be healthy. And we've seen it. We've seen pastors that have done that. Like Rick Warren, he just finished his journey, right? Like he did built this amazing church, did amazing things, and he never like went off the rails, which is really cool. So it does happen. People can do it.
Yeah.
So how do we help people get there? That was the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I felt it really helped me. I think one of the things that helped me most was the online assessment, because at the time there wasn't really anywhere to go to kind of gauge. Like, it was either in the psychology space or nothing. Like that was it. And so when I first took the assessment, it really highlighted I needed to slow down. I needed to, check my ego and my pride on a couple of things. And also at the same time, I just recently redid it like a month ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, and it's a brand new assessment, which is really cool because this book is 3 years old already. So to have an updated assessment, can you talk to me about that assessment and what it's looking for specifically to help people navigate or stay away from burnout?
Yeah, so we built those 10 pillars of health, really. And so the idea was, how do you find, some people will never have a problem like slowing down. Like, some people, like my dad, is just like, he's chill. He's like, he's never going to burn out in that realm because he's never like breakneck pace, right? Other people are. Some people, I'm not a perfectionist. I'm the opposite of a perfectionist, right? So that's not one that I deal with. Whereas I tend to deal with entanglements, where like I get addicted to things that are not addictive. Like I can zone out on a game on my phone, like the New York Times games app. Like I could fortunately there's a limit to how many games they make available, because I could spend 4 hours of my day doing that, right? And like that actually can become a source of burnout because it simulates rest. We can talk about that if you want. But the idea is, so how can we figure out what area we're most likely to be burning out in? And then how can we get healthy in that area? So that's what all the assessment's trying to do, is trying to find that area that you're most prone to burnout in and helping you survive that, helping you, okay, now what are some tweaks I need to make to be able to get to health in that area?
I love that so much. You mentioned perfectionism, and I worked for somebody who was like a perfectionist. Like, it had to be perfect, and it had to be perfect even in the idea stage. And so it was like jumping through so many emotional hoops. And so I know when you talked about entanglements, you talk about like this relational energy that sometimes gets sucked out of us, like from just doing the work. Can you talk about, your view on that? I'd love to get a little bit deeper on this idea from perfectionism to iterative, and like why you choose iterative, why you're not so meticulous on trying to be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that, we can't be perfect. First of all, I think all of us believe that. Yeah, maybe not, but all of us have that feeling, right? Like perfectionism typically comes from like this deep insecurity of, if it is not perfect, people will see the holes not in the project but in me. And I think that's so often why the perfectionism happens. We It's an image we're trying to portray. It's a, if I'm not perfect, I won't, meet the standards of my boss. Whatever it is, there's all sorts of different motivations behind the perfectionism. But the problem with perfectionism is, again, for me, I feel like you get so far down a road that there's no coming back from it. Or you're wasting your energy, especially if you lead teams. You're wasting the energy of your team on a 10% element that might change anyways. I've been doing a lot of like coding with Claude Code lately, and I want to do this, and then 2 seconds later, I'm like, the Claude him he finishes the code, and then I'm like, actually undo all that. I want to do it this way instead, right? That is not what you do with a person, right? Like if he was an actual person, he would have quit a long time ago and be like, this is the worst boss I've ever had. I can do this with Claude Code, right? But like the idea is sometimes we see something and we have to change it. And if we get too far down the road of like, this is what perfection is, I feel like we can just wear out our teams. Again, there's a healthy thing of like, okay, do proper planning, like plan the process so you're not burning out your teams with 1,000 iterations, but also leave space for, okay, what needs to change? There's so many changing variables. There's there's the environment, there's the market, there's yourself, there's your team, there's your resources that you have available. And I feel like when you try to be such a perfectionist about it, you miss out on some great opportunities.
I love in the assessment you give priority areas,
Mhm.
and this was like really, really key for me. And one was establishing healthy relational boundaries. That
Yeah.
was one thing that I needed to hear. I heard it, back then. I'm hearing it again now.
Yeah.
It's one of the coolest things because there was a part of me that I believed like I could not be perfect, but at the same time, my ego was like, I want to meet this person's standards as much as I
Yeah.
possibly can. And that meant I was working, crazy amounts of hours, doing lots of things that probably were outside of my job scope. So establishing healthy relational boundaries, can you talk to us about what does that look like for you, and what does that look like in, the work that you do with your teams?
Yeah, I think this does tie in really well with perfectionism. Is a lot of times we have standards for ourselves that other people don't have for us. So especially when you're talking about boundaries or perfection, that boss that you had, your perception was that they were a perfectionist. But could it be that they really valued a specific thing, but didn't necessarily care about a lot of the other things that you cared about or that you thought they cared about? And so you're trying to bring perfection in every single area whenever like, okay, yeah, they do have high standards, right? In this area. Let's focus here and then we can be a little bit more lax here. Same thing with boundaries. I think sometimes, people don't realize like, hey, can you do this project for me? And they don't realize that you're already working 60 hours in a week, right? Like if you don't set boundaries, letting people know what's going on in your life, especially in ministry though, we get this thing where like, there's always more needs. And we see the life of Jesus who poured himself out, like he thought himself not equal to God, but he made himself a servant. We see this and we're like, okay, well, true love demands that I am constantly available and that I constantly pour myself out. And even in Jesus, you don't see that. He went away. But moreover, moreover is such a cool word. Moreover, we live in an environment where we are constantly connected. Whenever the Good Samaritan, 3 people came across this guy, right? But right now, that guy who's bloody and beaten on the road, he can get access to 10,000 people on social media and demand their attention. Not only that, 10,000 beaten and bloody people can get your attention now on social media and demand from you. We are so interconnected that we cannot bear the burden of the needs that are presented to us. And if we don't establish boundaries, and I think of boundaries as like a gate instead of a fence. We think of a fence like, let's keep people out, right? But it's a gate where We choose when it's appropriate to let people in. And it is a gate. It is to let people in. We do have fences around our life, but make that boundary a gate where you say, yes, I can do this. Listen to the Holy Spirit. God, do you want me to open the gate to this person? And then yes, open the gate. But it's really being intentional about like, I have a limited availability to reach people and to help people. So I need to be intentional about who I let that into that gate.
Yeah, I love that, is the emotional boundary being a gate to where when people do need to come in, they come in. But
Yeah.
when people,
You're not saying no to
Yeah.
everyone. And then when you do say yes, you can say it joyfully. I used to, I was working at a church and everyone would ask me for something and I would say yes, but I said it bitterly. Like
Yeah.
I did not want to say yes. And once I started setting boundaries, I'm like, I can say this joyfully. Like, yes, I would love to help you with that. And then as soon as that boundary got broken, I'm like, you know what? I can no longer help you with that. And that's okay. And like, I can say that with joy. I can approach ministry with joy, which is really how we should do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you touched on something there, as being in a hyper-connected world. Like, we are just so inundated with information. Like, it's
Yeah.
just kept coming and coming. Neil Postman, in his book, it's from 1984. It's called Amusing Ourselves to Death. He talked about how news just kept coming, and it comes in waves. You can't process it emotionally. You can't like figure it out. You can't do anything about it. And I feel like social media has been, 10x of that
Yeah.
at this point in time. Like, we can't do anything about the people who are hurting on the internet, or we can't make a really big impact in
Yeah.
any substantial way, whether it comes to government, to politics, to ministry, whatever's going on in the world. And so, have you seen the Meta trials? Have you been keeping up with Meta and YouTube?
A little bit. So here's something addressing this
Yeah.
is I practice intentional ignorance. Like I do not expose myself to much news. If you look at my feed, it's wacky stuff. It's like Russians doing weird dances that I don't really understand. I'm like, it's kind of the cringe factor, but there's no news element to it. It's very, and then I use that for memes, right? Like there's a purpose for it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know what's going on a lot of times in the world, I feel like. And that's on purpose.
Yeah.
I don't read every nonfiction book. I read mostly fiction books. I don't listen to every podcast. I'm very intentionally ignorant about stuff so that I can maintain my rest, so that I can not feel like I have to do something about something that I have no responsibility over. So I have vaguely been aware of it. I'll need you to fill me in on it. But yeah, I want to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because what has happened is there have been evidence that Meta and YouTube have known that their platforms are addictive.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question was, is it actually harming children? Should children under the age of 16 have access to this? And I feel, as an adult with a fully formed brain, that even sometimes I have trouble stepping away from TikToks.
Boomers are sometimes the worst.
Yeah.
Where like they are on Facebook nonstop. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of the same ways. Like, I am so interested in like the aliens on TikTok and all that stuff. Like, just the weird
Yeah.
rabbit holes of all those things. And so I had to get a brick. Have you seen those? Do you know what bricks are? So I brick my phone for about 8 hours a day. And so like now I'm in that same,
Intentional ignorance.
intentional
I love it.
ignorance. I am not doing that. But when I do hop on, it's for specific things. It's either for music or for things that I like.
Yeah.
And it's not inundating myself with like the horrors of the world.
Yeah.
I actually feel like I'm enjoying social media. I'm enjoying the platforms, and I feel like I have more bandwidth. And so, yeah, I just found that really, really interesting, of how do you navigate that and how do you figure that out?
Yeah, I think the problem is, Pandora has already opened the box whenever we're talking about social media. And I don't know that, we can legislate all we want and, shut down Facebook. The next thing is going to come up because now we have created the thing. Like AI is largely that. Like it is, Pandora's box has been opened and now we can't put it back in the box. So how do we approach this effectively? Yeah, like social media is destroying people. At the same time, I don't know that getting off social media is the solution. I plan to be very intentional with my kids. Like, here are appropriate boundaries. Here's how you use this tool. For me, social media is amazing. I love it because I can create with it. It is a source of creation, not a source of, there is an entertainment element, right? But that is not the primary way I use that. And I feel like that's a very healthy way to use it. How can this thing that God has put in me, or this thing that I'm excited about, how can I put that out to the world? Social media lets me do that. And I think that's really a key is the evils are out there. The evils, what's the little goblins or whatever that were released from Pandora's box, right? Like they're out there. They're trying to take us away, but there's always been something like that. There's always been something that's been trying to steal our joy, steal our focus, steal our rest. And we just need to be intentional about recognizing the evils. So knowing that, yes, Facebook and Instagram have made this similar to gambling, where it like stimulates the dopamine centers of our brain, understanding what's happening with us and then saying, okay, now I'm not going to be victim of that. I'm going to then use the goodness of it, because there's goodness to it, right?
Absolutely.
Like it is not all evil. So how can I use the good part of it and then be healthy in the bad part of it?
Hey guys, before we move any further, I just want to let you know that the Sonnal Focus community is where you can find your focus, flow, and fun with other people. The truth is that you can use AI for any of the problems, for any of your questions, but what really moves the needle is when you can hop into community with other people who are invested in doing great work. If that sounds like something you want to do, there is a link in the description below. I would love to see you in the Sonnal Focus community. Thanks. And I felt like the internet started out really awesome, because it was a collaborative tool. I felt when it got competitive, that was where things started to shift. If now I'm having to compete, now I'm having to build an image. And what I feel like every time that I sit with you, the person that I get is the person that I'm seeing on Instagram. It's the person that I see in church. It's the person that I see at the coffee shop. Like, you're extremely consistent. And so is that a part of your ethos, like is around collaboration? Because I see you talking about, like, you have business partners from all around. Can you talk about the internet and its collaboration and how that's maybe something that has either helped you or?
Yeah, I think I would definitely say that being consistent is something that I've seen. I saw it in my dad. My dad was a pastor, and I attribute my survival as a pastor's kid to my dad being consistent. Who he was at our house was who he was on stage. And I valued that so much because I saw so many friends who were pastors' kids who, their dad got embarrassed by something they did. And because their dad was embarrassed, not because it was sinful, not because it was wrong, they got mad at their child because they were afraid of their image. Their image from the pulpit was different. Or, they were this wonderful person from the pulpit, and then at home they had anger issues. My dad was not perfect, right? But like every time I confronted my dad, like, hey dad, you get angry whenever, he was like, okay, what can I do about it? Like, he actually was humble enough to say, I want who I am to be the same throughout. So I definitely saw that as, that's something I hope that I can be is I would call that integrity, right? That you are the same person in every different environment, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think part of that is, I don't know that necessarily relates to my ability to do partnerships. Partnerships for me, I just realized I'm not always going to be the cool person. Right now I'm on social media. I'm 41 years old. This is not when I should be focusing on being a social media influencer or a creator, right? Like that's not the life cycle of a social media influencer, right? But I love doing that, but I realize I will not always be able to be in that space. As a pastor, and I would say this is true in general life, you tend to reach 10 years below and 10 years above you. That's who you're, the people you reach. I am aging out of this influence in this world. So how can I create something that's beyond just me? And also with my desire I just have like tons of ideas, right? And I can't do them all. So if I can work with people that can do them, or if I can bring the unique thing that I have, and some of that's just as you get older, you become more self-aware of like, what do I actually have to offer the world? And so I realized I have something very unique that not a lot of people have that I can give to my friend, and I can give to this other friend, and I can help them be successful, also getting to enjoy the ride, be successful as well, hopefully, right? Like we all, whenever the water rises, all the boats rise.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We did a survey in our Sonnal community, and 100% of respondents said that they struggle in some way, shape, or form with focus. But only about 50% reported saying it's actually going to, it's a problem.
Yeah.
And so I'm having a hard time seeing people saying, I want the tools to help me focus, to help me not burn out. But at the same time, if nothing happens, like there's almost a bit of a lackadaisical attitude of like, the same thing will be the same thing. Can you maybe respond to that? What priority area, if that was a priority area on the Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright 10 list, what would you say to somebody who is struggling with that?
Yeah, I think, not creating environments where you can focus is probably personality dependent. So I would say that I'm not a very focused person. I have 1,000 ideas constantly. We talked about before the podcast. If you look at my Claude Code setup, I have more tabs open. I was talking to my brother the other day, and he was looking at my tabs. He's like, I wouldn't be able to focus with all the things you have open, right? Like, I don't find that. Obviously, I'm able to accomplish things without this focus, right? This focus thing, whatever.
Sure.
But I do have a way of focusing that's right for my personality. My to-do list is my ability to focus. I don't have projects that are looming over me. I don't honestly know what I did this morning. I don't know what I'm going to do this afternoon. The only way I know is if I look at my to-do list, and whatever is in front of there is what I do. So that's my ability to focus is I just do what's in front of me and don't. And so I've had to create a system where, like, I can't let I can't let people interrupting me. I have to kind of create this one place that I can go to focus and do that. And then that's the way that I can get 20 different projects done, right? So that's kind of my way of focusing. But I think it is dependent on your personality. I think there's a lot of people that, maybe the to-do list is not the way you focus, and you really have to find, like, how can I put aside distractions? I almost have like the negative thing where, like, like my wife will text me, and like if she didn't text me because it's not on my to-do list, I might not talk to her for like 16 hours, right? Like, because I'm so hyper focused in that thing, and I have to break out of that a little bit. But finding that area of focus, for some people, I think it's the Pomodoro method, where you set you set the timer for 30 minutes of focus, right? Like, that's not for me, but you find your area of focus, you find your system of focus, and you just do it. But yeah, if you're already in the stage of burnout, you can set all those tools that all you want, and it's not necessarily going to help you. And that's where you probably need to go to counseling. And counseling is wonderful. Like, I love counseling, where help you kind of unpack the things that are causing you to not be able to focus, so that then you can get back into that system.
For me, it took me about 6 months of, like, literally not working, almost not doing anything, just learning how to, like, take care of myself as a human being, like cooking for myself, making sure I'm hydrated, going on runs. Like, it was 6 months of having to disconnect. So absolutely, that's absolutely true. I'd love to maybe double tap onto what you just talked about, like walk us through the morning of, like, setting your to-do list. When do you do that? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I don't set my to-do list in the morning. I set it the day before.
Okay.
So literally I roll up, and, like, I generally, the day before, I try to make sure that I don't have like 20 items on my to-do list, because that will be overwhelming. It's frustrating when I don't get things done. So I try to, okay, what are the things I do need to do tomorrow? That's kind of what I do the night before. At the end of the day, is I said, okay, what does my day tomorrow look like? Can I move some things a little bit further back, because I was dumb and I put 20 things on Wednesday, right? I shouldn't do that. So I try to keep it to about 12 or 13. If I'm doing this podcast thing, that's going to limit my ability to do some stuff. So I pull some things out. I just kind of see what my day looks like, and then I generally set it. But yeah, a lot of items are recurring to-do lists. So every Monday, I kind of know this is what I work on. And this app called Things that I use, I love it. I set recurring things every Monday. This pops up every Tuesday. This pops up every month. This pops up, right? Like, you set the frequency of it, and then it just is kind of made for me. So then I roll up in the morning, and then I'll organize things. I'll put things like, okay, I want to do this in the afternoon. This needs to happen first. But that's been key for me, is really kind of just having it done for me. I don't have a personal assistant, but I am my personal assistant from the day before. I try to set up tomorrow, Jonathan, to have a great day.
That's awesome. That is so good. I love that. We call that, like, a drop list. And so, like, the drop list are the things, like, we do it at the beginning of a week, and we say, what does this week look like? And so that's kind of how I do it. That's how, like, the Sonnal method is built out. And then the night before, I'm always checking, and I try to limit myself to 5 things. Like, if I could do 5 things tomorrow, like, that's going to be a win. Like, I used to believe I could do 10 things, 15 things a day. But yeah, I'm with you on that. That's absolutely.
I do try to, my general rule for my life is, an item should never take longer than 30 minutes. If it does, I split it up into 2 to-do list things, right? Like, writing is different. A little bit different. Like, when I write a book, right? Like, writing a chapter, that might take an hour. But for the most part, if I want to be able to finish the thing in 30 minutes, that's how long. That's if you're talking about, like, a dopamine, like, that's the, like, I did a thing and it took 15 minutes and I did it. But, like, if it takes 45 minutes, I might not be able to focus. I might have to go work on my puzzle a little bit, right? Like, I find myself drifting if it takes longer than 30 minutes. So that's how I can get 10 things done, because only 30 minutes long, right?
Yeah.
That's key. But most of it's more like 15 minutes, like 30 minutes is the upper limit. So I definitely try to break things apart. So when I write a book, I don't say write a chapter. I say, research this chapter. I say outline this chapter. I say write half of the chapter, write the second half of the chapter. One chapter is four to-do list items, and that helps a lot to feel like I'm making forward progress. And that's vital for me to be motivated throughout the day, is to feel like I'm making forward progress. A lot of times when you're working in a team, you can't feel like you're making forward progress because you had 4 back-to-back meetings and you got nothing on your to-do list done. And that's where I'd say like the 5 list, like limit yourself to 5 things so you feel like, okay, I made forward progress on the important things. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I love that because you know yourself, like you know how you work, you're not trying to be anybody else. And I feel like that 30 minutes, if you're doing like, 5 things in 30 minutes, you're hitting your upper limit. Like I think like psychologists have seen that humans can focus for up to like deep work tasks for up to like 3 to maybe like 4 hours per day, but that's it. And
Yeah.
so like having an 8-hour workday, it's like, what is the purpose of having an 8-hour workday as, thought leaders or, in our current knowledge space.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love that because you're probably in tune and then you get to hang out with friends, family, do your thing. Like what does the rest of your day look like after you knock out your to-do list?
I have 3 kids. So it's usually picking my kids up. It's cooking. I've had to change the way I cook where now like I make bags of like slow cooker meals where I throw it in the thing in the morning. I go to work, I do my thing. I definitely take breaks during the day to, do a puzzle or watch a show during lunch. I go pick up my kids and then it's finishing up the meal, eating, playing out in the neighborhood in the afternoon, a lot of neighborhood kids, and then bath time. My son stays up till 9 p.m. He's 5 years old and he shouldn't be staying up that late, but he just can't go to sleep before then. So I'm hanging out with him a little bit. Maybe Claude coding on the side while I'm cooking in between there, like, oh, I want to, do this thing. But then, then it's bedtime and it starts over again. I'm in the thick of it because I got a baby, a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I'm very much in the thick of parenting.
Yeah. 3 under 5. That is parenting mode right there.
Yeah.
One thing we talk about like focus, flow, and fun. And we try to separate those. Like focus is like, that 30 minutes. The flow is just where sometimes you just get locked in and you just, when you get locked in, you're locked in.
You're like, you're motivated. You're like, I'll spend 4 hours on this and I'd be happy about it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But then there's the fun part. And I don't think you have a problem with this, but I do. I'm a person who has a problem with this. Like I don't have a lot of fun things on my to-do list. So I intentionally have to put those there.
Yeah.
What are the things, I know you talked about puzzles. Are there any other things you do that like add a bit of fun or that momentum to your day?
The beautiful thing about being self-employed is I almost feel guilty about this. I can decide I want to try to make money with something and I can just make it fun. So, starting my Instagram account and posting these videos, like that's fun for me. And I find a way to make money from the things that are fun to me. So I don't do many things that are not already fun. Yeah. Which is almost a problem. Like, right, I can tend to fall back on like hedonism where like, if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. Like only give me the fun stuff. And so I like, obviously not everything that I do is fun. There's parts of running Sunday Social now where I'm like, it's no longer fun. The organization has gotten so big that I now need to like do things for the healthy organization that are not fun for me. So I definitely try to match, like new projects are fun, old projects are not fun. So I try to definitely balance my day where there's enough new fun stuff. I used to do all my maintenance stuff on Monday through Wednesday where it's like all the maintaining things, which is not fun for me. Monday through Wednesday, that's like my deep focus. And then Thursday and Friday are fun for activities for new projects. I can't do that anymore. Maybe it's because I have kids now, maybe whatever it is, but now I have to balance my days a lot more to be able to like find the motivation for the things that are not the fun things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You talked earlier about Claude Code, and I think AI is in an interesting spot because there's a lot of great things happening. There's a lot of problematic areas, like it being trained on proprietary knowledge. And so there's ups and downs to it all. But for the most part, I enjoy Claude. I enjoy, using those tools to help refine my thinking.
Yeah.
I don't ask it to like build something. I build something and say, hey, what are the gaps in where I'm thinking here through a specific lens? And so what are the things that are interesting you right now in the AI space?
Claude Code has been, so I feel like the first thing that I did is I created an app for myself just to organize my life. It's something probably no one else will need, right? Like it has all of the recipes that I have. I previously had all of my recipes in Airtable, and like that would help me kind of come up with interesting things to make for food. So I was not eating the same thing. Like that was one thing I did. But now I'm like, okay, can I collaborate with my wife where she can add to the shopping list? And or if I select a recipe, it auto populates the shopping list for me. And then like it schedules what day that's going to be happening. So she knows what time we're eating what. So I built this very specific app, and I'm like, I just got this vision. I'm like, I don't ever need to buy an app again. Like, because not only do I not have to buy it, but now I can make it exactly what I want instead of like, oh, I wish they had this feature. Like I just make that feature myself. So I just got this vision for like, man, now if you put robotics involved in it, where you can like make your own coffee maker or have your robot do exactly what, like I'm waiting for people to build modular robot pieces that can hook up with like a coding system that I can code myself and make exactly what I want instead of buying the $50,000 whatever robot that like, is very good at one thing, but not necessarily for my life. Right. So I just see this vision for like, there's no barrier to entry to something that needs to be coded anymore.
Yeah.
Which is so fun. I feel like once that unlocks for you, you can make anything. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that app that you talked about for food because my problem is like I'll open the pantry and be like, I don't think ahead like for food. Like that's my weakness. That's my Achilles heel is I'll just open up and try to make something there on the spot.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've planned ahead. You've built an app. I would almost think that would be one of the most successful things is to like create. That helps create bandwidth like in the kitchen. Like I would almost say like that's a $1 million idea right there.
I could package it. It's ready to go. Like I mean, I even added, like our checklists in the morning so that my wife and I can collaborate, like, what needs to be in Claire's bag, what needs to be in Julian's bag. And like, we check it off the night before. So we know it's all done. So she's then asking me, did you get the bottles or whatever, all that stuff. Like it's great for collaboration. But again, that's like, I find the problem that I have in my life and how can I speed this up? I've been building, I rebuilt the assessment from Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright in that with Claude Code, and it saved me. Now I don't have to spend that $100 a year for that product. I'm spending $30 a month on Claude Code, so I'm not saving money. But like I can start getting rid of those things that are maybe not the way I wanted in the first place and are costing me money, and are maybe an inefficient way to add something. Now I can do it myself, which is just it's crazy. I'm still paying a developer for Sunday Social because that thing is such a behemoth, and it's so and there is still room for developers, but especially for personal projects or micro projects, which again is all that I do. Man, Claude Code's incredible.
I love that.
Any AI coding, I think is incredible.
That's really, really cool. I'm really interested in the trainings behind the models. So I know Anthropic talked about their philosophy, and a lot of people started leaving ChatGPT and OpenAI to go to Anthropic and go to Claude because they're training it on like these philosophical ideas, like these principles. And have you seen Claude talk about the soul? Have you seen that?
No, I'm mostly in the AI in the coding world. But what probably moved me away from ChatGPT was how maybe this is a bad word for it, but how masturbatory it is.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, wow, what an incredible idea.
Yeah.
And I don't want that.
Yeah.
I want a little bit. Even Claude doesn't push back as much as I would like it to. I want someone to be like, an AI model to be like, that's maybe not a great idea. Have you tried this? That's the big thing that got me away from it was like ChatGPT is it kind of feels like that person in your college course that like you're in a group project with them and they're just like, yeah, they're like so into it and they just like slap something together and you're like, no, you missed what your job was supposed to be completely.
Yeah.
You're like, but I did it. And you're like, no, like it's just kind of like it's a good friend, but you don't want to be in a project with them, right? I felt like that was with ChatGPT. It's still super helpful. I still use it like on other projects and things like that. But like Claude, I felt like was a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more, give me a little bit more pushback, which I do really like.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. If you ever get a chance, check it out. It's at, it's called soul.md. And it is essentially like a series of questions was asked to Claude. And it kind of gave its response of like, even though I don't have a soul, here is what I do bring to the table.
Which I think they just tell it to say that it has a soul.
Well, yeah, it was really, really interesting. And so, yeah, I love Anthropic. Like Anthropic did their own version because some guy he kind of did this. He said, hey, Claude, tell me about like the soul and what do you have one? It was really, really interesting. But then Anthropic came out with their own version, their own statement of, this is the philosophy that we train on. This is, what the models are supposed to do. So yeah, it's been really interesting, the whole space of AI.
Yeah, we're in the beginnings of it. I feel like I'm right now. Like, a friend of mine told me, he's like, it's kind of like the bubble. You have like the Bitcoin bubble, or the what's it called, the
Crypto.
crypto bubble. You had the .com bubble. I think right now we're in a bubble where it's just it's the Wild West, and there are tons of opportunities, and people are going to misuse it. People are going to become vastly wealthy because of it. And the bubble's going to pop eventually, but right now it is a bubble. So I'm like, I want to get in on it. Like, I would like to be able to benefit from it as much as possible, but it is still very in its infancy stages. And so I have no idea what it's going to be like. And none of us do, I don't think.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, because everything that goes through that bubble stage, it only matures after the bubble pops. Meaning, like, we didn't have the Internet of Things until the internet.com bubble broke. And the Internet of Things probably turned out to be some of the best internet out there. Same thing with cryptocurrency, like introducing, AI. Like, a lot of the safeties of crypto, like, those get blown away by a quantum computer. So, like,
yeah, you're talking about that newest thing I heard yesterday, that they like basically broke they broke crypto.
Yeah, you can just reach over with a quantum computer and say, hey, this is
mine now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so
it's insane.
But what's interesting is that these things get better when the bubble breaks, when those things pop. And so I'm actually interested in like what the future iterations look like in like life and like daily wear and like, that type of thing. So while I don't hope the bubble bursts because we have so much of our economy in it, I do hope that it matures to a place where it starts to become more and more helpful to the everyday user and the everyday individual.
I think right now the bubble is AI as a creator instead of AI as an assistant. Because that's really what I see when I look at this Claude Code thing. Is like, I'm like, man, I could ask, I could make my own coffee maker, and I could ask Claude, hey, what product do I need to buy to be able to make this, and then code it to be able to make it exactly to my specifications. So seeing that I can create something to assist me in life, still not there yet, but I do think that's where we're heading, because that's the greatest opportunity. So right now we're like, hey, Claude, write me a joke, or write this paper for me, and like, that's okay, whatever. But like, that's the bubble, I would say. But instead, now help me make this thing that makes my life better is and it's largely it decentralizes the industry a little bit. Like right now, I don't need, I could build my own Spotify essentially. I could build any of these companies that now I can build that myself, which is wild to me. I could build Photoshop, and so I don't need to pay for Photoshop, and I could build Photoshop exactly like I want it to be. So it decentralizes the industry of things that I need to buy and puts all the power into our hands, it would be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to see where that goes in the future. I think that would be just an interesting space. Last question for you is one, like for me, it's kind of a bit selfish because I love narrative, like anything storytelling, anything that has to do with that, I am just all about. And in Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright, one of the things that I found really interesting in the assessment was like number 8, to seeing your past differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that I wouldn't have associated with burnout, with focus, with the whole, stepping into this new age of technology. Can you speak to that idea of being able to see the past differently, and how moving forward, like what is that bridge of moving forward into this new space of technology?
Yeah, I've seen so many people sabotage relationships or sabotage working relationships again because of something that happened in their past, and one word reminds them of that past, and they assume this is what's happening currently. I think about that. I was a pastor's kid, and for me, anytime someone left my church, my dad's church, I felt personally attacked. And so then I got to this weird stage where like I felt like God was calling me to leave a church, and I'm like, oh no, I can't do that. That's only bad guys do that. Only the bad guys leave a church, right? And I had to unlearn that and realize like anytime someone left a church, I had this like, even whenever I was no longer on staff, when I just was attending a church, I had this like, they're stabbing me in the gut with a knife, right? And I went through so much emotional. I released so much emotional energy every time that happened, just because I had unhealed hurts that I was reliving and I didn't need to. It was not what I thought was happening, but it's because those things triggered those past hurts. It's PTSD, it's on a much more micro level, right? But like the idea is like that's what happens in PTSD is you had an event that happened, a firework goes off, and now you relive the war zone, right? And like that is just emotionally taxing on you. And the more hurts that you have, the more time you've been burned and haven't resolved those issues, the more emotional energy you're spending on things that are not even happening. Like you're reliving a war in ministry that is not happening. Like it's actually quite peaceful, but you are going through a war. And so it's something that will burn you out. It's a insidious, hidden thief of your energy, and that'll burn you out where maybe you're like, what's going on? Like you'll get, sometimes you'll find yourself in this place in life. You're like, why am I exhausted right now? Why am I so discouraged when everything is going well?
Yeah.
And it's often because of something like that, where it's like this underlying thief that is stealing from you.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that I'm a huge practicer of is somatic integration, like realizing there's signals in my body and my brain that are like that firework went off. I can either go into war zone or I can start to try to take control. And so while the flare is always going to go off, while signals are always going to hit, there's going to be anxiousness or tension. There's always ways through that. And I've loved how somatic integration, like through breath work, through like, Calm apps, there's just so many good things out there. Or do you use any of that? Do you subscribe to any of those things?
No, I don't have a lot of things in my life. It's really just a matter of taking the time to realize I don't want that to be a pattern in my life. My wife, one of the people that had hurt me in ministry, he was, our young adults pastor. He went and started another ministry. And I remember my wife, when we were first starting to date, she's like, "Hey, I'm wanting to go check out this thing." And I blew up at her. I'm like, that guy's a scoundrel, right? Like I jumped on her and she's like, "Whoa." And that signaled to me, for the first time I realized, oh, I have some unresolved hurt and anger and bitterness toward this person. And so I made a decision. I don't want that to affect my relationship with this girl, and obviously affecting other relationships that I might not even be aware of. And so I was very intentional about like, how can I forgive this person? So I actually at one point I went to the ministry with her and we like checked it out, and I'm like, okay, I think I've kind of forgiven him, right? Like but it was a very intentional, like, how can I work through these, basically how can I make the decision, and then how can I work through that? And then, still having to do it, it's never like you finish forgiving someone, like they'll, it's not so bad anymore, but like they'll do something or something will come up and I'm like, oh yeah, that person did that. And I just have to say, okay, I'm making the decision to forgive or to rewire this part in my brain. And it's kind of one of those, like, once you decide to do it, your brain there's this power that happens in your brain where your brain can kind of figure it out on its own. Once you've made that decision, I'm working with my son right now. He's scared at night, staying in his bed. And like, I'm trying to help him figure out how to make the decision that, no, I'm going to be brave. And it's rewiring his brain. I'm seeing it happen in real time. It's pretty cool, but your brain has incredible power to do that.
Yeah, you can tell yourself, this is what I believe. And the more you reinforce that belief, like your brain's going to
the negative and positive. Yeah.
The negative and positive. Absolutely. Absolutely. Jonathan, where can people find you, your work? What's the best way to get in touch with you and your work?
Yeah. I mean, you can check out Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright. It's available on Amazon. You can grab it, or you can just do the free assessment at don'tburnoutburnbright.com/assessment. Follow me on Instagram. I do check my DMs and I like talking to people. So if you want to just chat about something, do that. And then Sunday Social is social media content for churches. If you work at a church, if you are looking for a scheduler, we have this really cool stuff that we're working on. Check us out.